All right, big milestone today. We've come a long way to get to where we are now. The whole house is insulated. We're gonna wait for inspection. From there, start drywalling. So let's start talking about the insulation of this house, starting from upstairs. So on the top floor of this house, you can recall that we initially had applied about 8.5 inches of spray foam to the roof areas of this house. So in addition to the spray foam, we decided to add another layer of Rockwool, giving it an R value of 14 to the ceiling areas. So you might notice the walls are also Rockwool, but they're polyed and the ceilings are not. Well, the reason why the ceilings do not need to be poly is because we're using spray foam in the ceiling, and that acts as not only the air barrier, but also acts as the vapor barrier for the ceiling space. So have a look at the poly here. It's sealed at the top plate and the bottom plate, giving us a continuous seal of the vapor barrier all across the wall assembly. And check out this penetration here. Anywhere where you have a penetration or an outlet box coming out of the exterior wall, you gotta make sure it's got the gasket around the flange, or use a poly box style, which has a poly enclosure behind it. You also want to make sure the poly is open over top of these areas and taped around the flanges, just to ensure that extra continuity of the poly against the gaskets. What happens is when the drywallers come in here and they zip open this box, this poly will just flap open. If you don't have a good adhesion or a way of adhering it to the box, it'll just be left open and you're just relying on the drywall to compress it. Using this tape to open it and tape it to the box, you actually add a level of security to this assembly where the drywall can now compress against all these pieces of tape against the flanges to keep it nice and airtight on the inside of the house. So we decided to put insulation on the interior walls as well. In this case, we still use Rockwool material. Right now, when I'm standing in this room compared to what it was a couple days ago, it's completely dampened. So the sound is kept nicely in this room rather than echoing across other rooms. I could show you just how effective this insulation is. Check this out. I'm gonna go to the other side and I'm gonna speak from the other side of the insulation, and the microphone be left on this side to give you a sense of how much this wall insulation will dampen the noise. All right, so I'm speaking from the other side of the room. Hello, hello, hear me? And now I'm speaking back into your side of the room. So cover it up, speaking like this, opened up. So that's the difference that this insulation can do by putting it inside the walls in between the two rooms. So now it's time to start covering up all the walls and ceilings, but just remember, we come a long way from where we were before. We've installed a lot of things inside the walls and ceilings. It's good to take pictures to remember where everything is, but it's also good practice to mark off the locations. For example, pot lights can easily be missed, and searching for a missing pot light later can incur time and damage to your ceilings. To be a bit more accurate, we should be locating these pot lights and directly below putting a little circle and spray paint, just kind of indicate that there's a pot light there. And for areas that are a bit more prone to damage, for example, we're in a closet area, and just note there's 2 sprinkler pipes right where a closet will be mounted. You definitely don't want to be hitting this during the finishing stages. So it's also good to mark off on the ground areas of caution. For example, this is a sprinkler pipe. I mark it off with yellow. I would indicate to the installers that behind this wall where marked yellow, there is a vertical sprinkler pipe that's installed. Make sure not to hit those things during their installation of their hardware. So since the beginning of this job, we've always identified that this south wall is too close to the neighbor's property line. So this wall is considered combustible within the limiting distance. Therefore, this wall needs to be treated a bit differently. Typically, 1/2-inch drywall can be used for the drywall for this whole side. However, because of its distancing to the neighbor's property line, we have to consider upgrading the fire rating for this wall. Now, how it's typically done is 5/8 Type X drywall is applied to this entire wall all the way down into the basement areas to give it that extra fire rating. In the event this wall catches on fire, it conforms to that distancing requirement to the property line. So I'm standing in the secondary suite area of the house, and this is where the door separates the living area for the master's unit and the secondary suite. Now, there's a couple of rating issues for this floor and wall assemblies. They include a 45-minute fire rated door. It also includes insulating within the walls and ceilings. It also includes adding a layer of sound bars, which stops the sound transmission from the secondary suite over to the master's primary unit. So the use of 5/8 Type X drywall is also extended to the use inside the secondary suite to capture the walls and the ceilings. And if you note this area, for tub installations, you should always have a piece of 5/8 Type X behind the tub, both sides, to make sure there's a true separation taking place. So typically a tub would go against the framing, but in this case, the tub goes against the drywall, followed by your second layer of 1/2 inch drywall, which goes over top of that for your towel backing. And you can see the sound insulation, the sound bars also apply in these areas. So when doing secondary suites, it's also good practice to make sure your fire stopping is continuous. In this case, we're gonna make sure that all of our ceilings and walls are done before we start building the drop ceilings in this room. So in this room, all the machinery has been installed against the finished ceilings. We're gonna complete the walls first before we start doing the drop ceilings, making sure that this unit is fully compartmentalized as a fire-rated assembly before any of the ductwork and framing is captured in the drop ceilings. So we wait for the inspector to come by, give us the okay to start boarding, and from there it's 2.5 to 3 weeks of boarding, taping, and mudding, and sanding, and all that dusty stuff, and then we get to the finishing stage.